Hello humans, Batsy here with another create video. Today we going to work on the last section of the manufacturing area, which is going to be a multi-step bolt crafter. For those wondering what that will even be, we basically going to have several mechanical crafter setups in parallel, so each one works as a step to craft something else down the line. For example, to make a deployer, first, we need to make those brass hands. So, we could have one step making the hands, and the next step putting it all together. This means we can throw base materials onto it, and let it craft everything for us. I think it's an elegant solution to space. Otherwise, we would end up with 400 chunks of a factory to automate every single small item in the game, which I feel like is very unnecessary. I also want to remind the humans that you can join the SMP by becoming a Tier 2 member on YouTube, or a Tier 2 Patreon. Of course, if you become a higher tier, you will also get the benefits. And if the SMP is not for you, I also have a Discord where we hang out and talk about Minecraft and other games. All the links are in the description below, so check them out if you are interested. With all that out of the way, let's go back to the task at hand, the multi-step bolt crafter. I think we do have a reasonable amount of space. I'm confident we will manage with what we have, so let's get building. Alright, so, let's grab some mechanical crafters, and start laying down the basic setup we going to have. And maybe some of those funnels too. Oh, right, that reminds me, I was here this morning manufacturing many of the new components that we are producing and also took the chance to make many funnels, because I was running low on them, so maybe it's a good idea to get them all first. You can see I've been a busy bat. I mean sure this is not a crazy amount, but it should fill up a toolbox, for sure. I just grabbed the 2 boxes I'm going to fill, and let's just go right ahead and flush all the funnels into the main vault. It's a silly detail, but I still love this effect with the lamps. Let's get some of those too. We wait a bit. And some of those too. And also those. I don't want to spam the buttons because it might fill up the belt, but it's alright, it doesn't take too long either. Alright, that should be everything. So now we can plug those boxes into the vault. Yes, we can see all the items are here already, awesome. Then we press the button. And just wait a little bit. Any second now. Awesome, boxes filled. Put them back in, and we are good to go. Now where do I want to start? Okay, maybe I start here instead. Starting by the start does sound like a good start. Instead of what I was doing, building at the very end of it, silly me. So that's the initial one. I think it's in a good position, it leaves a bit of margin before the hallway. Then we fill up the back with funnels. Making sure they facing the right direction, perfect. I'll go right ahead and place down the mechanical arm as a placeholder for now. That seems a bit too tight, it's going to be on the way. Yes, that's a bit better, enough space to work with. Then I'm thinking of having a bunch of depots to give items to the mechanical arm, it worked nicely last time. Maybe this instead. Yes, that looks perfect. And there is plenty of room on all sides too, which should make logistics easier. So if we place the next line of crafters here. With all the funnels, of course. Now how would I go about moving the items to the next step? I tell you what, I'm going to place the vault and figure out the depots first. Okay, I could place chutes underneath, but that looks rather unnecessary. I think I got it. Now if it faces this way instead, we place all the funnels up here. Yes, I like it. Then you go out. You go here. You also go out. And you go here. Yes, this looks so much more simple. But it would be better to simply connect those already, so how do we connect the last step now? Into the vault seem a bit silly. Maybe another depot here? Yes, I think this should do. There is plenty of room. Then it gets crafted, and stored in the barrel just in case we need a buffer. Then it falls into the depot to get used on the next step. While I'm repeating this setup a couple more times, I wanted to take a moment to thank you all so much for the constant support I keep receiving. I read all the comments the humans leave me. And know that I appreciate every one of you so much. I try to reply or at least react to most of them. Like this one over here, thank you 𝐋𝐢𝐬𝐬 for your kind words, and I'm glad that you are enjoying my videos. I realize that sometimes it might be hard to tell if I've read them, but I assure you humans, I really do. And, I thought that from now on I would take a moment of the video to appreciate one of the humans that left me a comment on the previous one. So don't hesitate to leave me something to read, I might feature it on the next episode. Now back to the video. I have added this barrel here to dump the materials into the vaults. I think it should be enough. Oh, right, I also forgot to connect everything. Now yes, it looks much better. Oh wait, this one shouldn't be here, I placed one too many. Yes, now looks perfect. As you can see behind me, I ended up going for 3 steps, which should be good enough for most situations really. I have actually spent a couple more hours since the last clip. I tweaked a lot around the design, making sure it's the simplest iteration of it. Because, I came up with some cool ideas that I liked, but it was more convoluted and unnecessarily complicated to use. I'm happy with how it turned out though, it's exactly what I had in mind when I thought about it. Also, a reminder that I will leave a schematic with it in the description below, in case any of you humans want to use it yourselves. For now, let me show you what I've done, and I will also explain how it works. So the humans don't get confused after importing it into your worlds, just follow the steps I will show. So, this is the schematic that I'm going to upload, which will include this speed controller too, just in case the humans need it. It comes with a clutch, and of course, it's the best way to show where you should be connecting your power. Otherwise, there could be issues with things spinning the wrong way. I recommend turning it off while the humans aren't using it, especially when setting it up. Otherwise, it will constantly try to craft while we still setting up the filters and everything. In my case, I'm going to remove it. We already have max speed in this area, and my source is up here in this belt. I'm still going to hook it in the same place, and of course, I will also keep the clutch, which I'm going to turn off already while we work on the machine. The plan I have in mind now is to show how to craft an encased fan. That requires 2 different steps, so it should be a good example of how to use this. Those are all the materials we need to produce some encased fans. The first step will be to make propellers, and the last step will be the fans themselves. We could always craft them by hand, but in the case, we wanted to make an entire barrel of those. You can simply throw the materials here, and let it work while you're doing other stuff. The first thing we want to do, is remove the covers, but only those that match with the recipe we're going to work on. For us, that means 3 vertical slots on the last step. And then everything except the corners on the middle step. We won't be using the first one. Then we're going to set up our craft on those funnels. Think of it as it was a crafting table. We place the materials on the filters, making sure to keep the recipe shape, and also matching it with the covers we removed previously. See how I'm placing the recipe at the same line I removed the covers from? And we will do the same for this one. We take all the materials, and we set up the recipe on the funnels too. That looks good. And of course, it matches with the covers we removed before. Now we need to make sure the arms can pick up the materials. So, place one of them here, and the other one on its side. And for the last step, we also need those shafts, and of course the casings. The rest will all stay empty because this specific craft will only use those 2. There is a limit of 6 different items without counting the previous step. We could always place more funnels on the other side, but I honestly think 6 different items are more than enough for nearly all the items in the game really. I can't think of anything that takes more than 4 or 5. So now that we have those funnels set up, we want to dump the items on the system. All of those levers lock the funnels on the other side. So we're going to flick the ones that we set up with our materials. If we take a look really quickly, you can see how some of them are currently locked. Those are the ones without filters. to ensure the items will get spread where we want them to be. An alternative would be taking one of those covers and simply filling up the filters with it, which will make sure those funnels don't get used. That of course is a more awkward hitbox, but if the humans don't like the idea of the levers, then you can simply remove that and use the covers instead. The point is to at least have one filter with each material to ensure all the different materials are always present to get picked up. With that out of the way, we come to the barrels and simply dump the materials needed in each step of the craft. Now we activate it, and the humans can see how it's filling up already. Of course, it's first waiting for the previous step to finish. And there you go, it's using the materials of the previous one just fine. Mechanical crafters aren't particularly quick. There is also the issue that the final step always needs to wait for the previous steps to be done crafting. This one has more slots to fill up, so it will take a bit more to do. It will always be as slow as the slowest step of the craft. That said, the point of this is to go AFK and let it run to craft an entire shulker of items. As you have seen before, it has up to 3 steps. Of course, you can add as many as you want. I thought this was enough, and I didn't have more room. Or if the craft we're working on is more complex than this, another option would be to have a second set of crafters on the left, with another depot in place that will feed the arm in parallel. It's a good option to consider. Right now the only more complex craft that requires a crafting table was the propeller. The rest can be processed with other machines, but maybe there is a craft with a propeller and a brass hand or something that also requires a table. It's worth considering for more complicated mod packs. Another idea is that instead of steps, those can also be used independently of one another. We could have each one of those steps bulk crafting any item we want. That would make 3 different items at the same time. Or even use this design but instead place down 20 of those, and just bulk craft anything. This can be adapted to anything the humans need. Other options for the basic create could be this mixer for example. The recipe is similar to the encased fan, but it also has this whisk that needs a crafting table. We could set up a set with those materials, and the final one to put it all together. Anything that is forced to use those mechanical crafters can benefit from this setup. What else is here? This one doesn't. Deployers, of course. Can have one step making all those brass hands, and the last step to make deployers. I think that's all the good options from this box. But you can use this for anything really. And as I said, do make sure to evenly distribute materials. If we're going to craft a stack of encased fans, and we use for that a stack of casings, then don't feed the previous step with 4,000 iron sheets and andesite alloys. That will leave the humans with an absurd excess of propellers. If you decide to not go for the levers, you can always move those barrels around to make it more compact. You can place them up there if you want, and have the funnel under it. The only thing with the levers is that the funnels need to be in the middle, otherwise they will also receive the redstone signal. But tweak it as you see fit for your design. I'm really pleased with how all of this turned out to be. I think it's a great alternative to having a million crafters for all the items that 𝐋𝐢𝐬𝐬 has to offer. And to be honest, I have been thinking about making this for a while now, so it gave me the perfect excuse to do it. As said before, the schematic will be in the description below, and do make sure to follow the steps and get a good sense of how the schematic works, but feel free to leave a comment if you have any doubts about it too. Another thing I have also done recently. Actually, let me just show you it. I think the humans might laugh at me when they see it. Yep, I made yet another cobble generator. But Batsy, you already reworked the cobble generator just an episode ago. Yeah, I know, but I was getting tilted by that one too. This one might look absurdly oversized, but there is actually a good reason for it. If we come this way, you can see that I have the cobble generator at the back of it. A really massive cobblestone generator. A humongous cobble generator. That generates all the cobble underneath it, just like most designs that use pumps to do it. Now, the problem I have with this is that this design leaks a lot of items. If we go inside of here, between those pumps, there is a very likely chance for items to get stuck in that water. Any design that breaks the cobblestone right under the pumps has this problem. I tested them all for hours on end. There are some that are almost okay, but run anything for hours, and they will eventually start leaking items. That's just because sometimes if the timing is the worst possible, the item has nowhere to go and it goes up instead of down. I thought the last design I did would be more helpful on that regard, but after many hours, it also started to leak cobble. So after a lot of testing, I thought I would simply move the cobble away from the pumps before breaking it. I won't give the cobble any reason to leak through the pumps. I tried vertically, and I tried horizontally. At the end of the day, the best way to do it was a mechanical bearing, which will flip the entire section of the cobble 180 degrees to the opposite side, where it will be mined out by the drills without the risk of spilling out or leaking through the pumps. It will simply flip the entire cobble layer far away from those pumps, and get nicely mined down, and then gathered by those belts into the vaults down there. It also uses this incredibly simple redstone to trigger the mechanical bearing, mainly to make sure the bearing doesn't just flip the cobble over and over, not giving the drills time to mine it down. When this cobblestone gets mined down, that will activate the observer and toggle the latch, which will power up the bearing and move new cobblestone in place. That will trigger the observer again, turning off the latch. Then when the cobble gets mined yet again, it will turn it back on and trigger the bearing again. That will repeat endlessly unless we turn it off. It's an incredibly simple solution, instead of having to time it super perfectly. And it also means there is a very easy way to power it off. We simply turn off the drills, so the observer will always wait for the next signal. That's much better than interrupting the redstone circuit, which then means we would need to start the cycle properly. I can show you really quickly how it works. Not this way. You might be thinking that the belts won't be able to keep up, but the humans will see how it's enough. If we turn it back online, you can see the massive spam of cobblestone right away. And yes, it's completely overflowing the belt. At first glance, it feels like the belts won't keep up. But if we take a closer look, the cobblestone that stays on top of the belts will slowly gather the rest laying around too, and it eventually finds its place in the belt too. I had this running for hours, and it always has between 20 to 40 cobblestone blocks laying around that are waiting for a spot in the belts. 40 items are nothing compared to smelting setups that dump hundreds and hundreds. Even the gantry setups already end up having hundreds of glitched cobblestone if you leave it running long enough. Now to address the elephant in the room. Batsy, why did you do it so massive? Well, that's kind of true, it is quite big, not gonna lie. The reason is that it's slower than a gantry setup, drills take a bit to mine out cobble. So I went for size rather than speed. And maybe I also got carried away a big time and decided to make it 2 vaults wide for no apparent reason, other than I thought would be funny, and it does match perfectly in ratio between vaults and fluid tanks. I'm going to leave a schematic for it in the description below in case someone is silly enough to want to use it too. But a huge disclaimer for the humans, if you don't have a half-okay CPU, this is going to be a nightmare to run. The server seems to be doing alright with this design. I haven't seen it lag because of it, but it might very well be a bit much for a smaller server. Oh, I almost forgot. I added those observers to it. Those are constantly changing the state of the funnel. I explained in a previous episode how triggering the state of the funnel forces it to throw items more quickly than it normally would. Every time the funnel unlocks, it forces one item through it, which is quicker than its default speed. Those observers tick slower than the previous design I showed with the powered latch, but this is more than enough to keep up with the rates of the generator. Without this, one single funnel per vault isn't enough. One last thing I will say, this can also work with a much bigger size too. The humans can take this schematic and start placing several in parallel with a single mechanical bearing at the end of it. I'm pretty sure the limit was something like 128 blocks long or whatever. It can get really huge if the humans want it to. I'm not responsible for how bad the FPS might get if the humans make it that huge though. But now yes, this is going to be it for this episode. I had a blast creating the multi-step bolt crafter, and the name itself is already so silly. I also loved creating the new Cobble Generator. I was hoping to have enough time to build the rest of the walls and whatnot, but I ended up being more busy than I was hoping for. Maybe we will tackle that in the next episode, but for now, the idea is to start creating the brain of the factory, which I'm really excited about. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment so it might be showcased in the next episode. Also, look at all these Patreons. Take care everyone, and I will see the humans next time.